Alright, following their latest win, the Lakers now 13-4, having the second best record in the Western Conference, only behind the OKC Thunder, playing 10 of their 17 games on the road so far, in which they have an 8-2 road record, second best in the entire NBA. They now got LeBron back, who's playing great, not looking like a 40 going on 41-year-old, having a 12 assist game to his name not too long ago, looking like the best second option in the entire NBA behind Luka Doncic. Not to mention that they probably have the two best second options in the entire NBA, both LeBron, weird to say that, and Austin Reeves, who's both top 12 in points per game and assists per game up until this point. Luka is playing like a top 3 player in the entire world, leading the NBA in points per game with 35.2 per game. Definitely an MVP talk. The Lakers are definitely stringing together a good stretch here. The vibes are great, the team's looking great, but is this the peak for them? Have they reached it and now it's downhill from here? Are the haters right saying that they can't beat good teams, that they've had no competition, and that they're simply not built to win? Or is there maybe a higher peak for them to get to and possibly that we have not seen it yet? We're going to talk about that, what they have shown so far, why there's optimism to believe that they can go even higher than this, and simply about their team so far. So we're going to talk about that and try to break it all down here. And well, I guess beginning with the narrative that they do not have the ability to beat good teams, not only in my opinion, but literally for a fact, that is not true. Up until this point, the Lakers have had the 7th toughest matchup difficulty in the entire league thus far. And throughout it, they've still put together a 13-4 record, the 3rd best record in the entire league, in spite of the matchup difficulty, in spite of playing without LeBron for 14 of their 17 games, playing without Luka for 5 of them, even without Austin for 3 of them. They managed to get through that and put together a very good record in spite of their matchup difficulty. But even beyond that, and pointing directly to their depth, I'd say that's been much better than many thought. You know, entering the season, the narrative was that they had no depth and no quote-unquote help to give Luka Doncic and or LeBron James. But I think with everyone from Austin Reeves, for example, that's the number one to point to. You know, many were claiming that he should be traded for a different player, a true third option quote-unquote, and well, I think he's gone above and beyond to prove that narrative wrong. Up until this point, averaging 28 points per game, over 5 rebounds per game, 7 assists per game, 1.4 steals per game, shooting 50% from the field as a guard, oftentimes being their number one option with no LeBron or Luka on the court, of course dropping that 51-point game earlier in the season, not to mention a game-winning shot, having a 41-point game, multiple 30-point games, and definitely being the best third option in the league quote-unquote, if not the best second option too. So that's number one to point to. On top of that, I've been impressed with guys like DeAndre Ayton, of course. Everyone said that he was a uncommitted and unprofessional player that didn't want to win, didn't care about it, and only cared about getting his check, and I think he's proven that wrong too. Throughout 15 games, Ayton's averaging 15.5 points per game, 8.4 rebounds per game, 1 block per game, shooting a team high 69.6% from the field, also a career high for himself, is doing much better than many thought, much more committed on defense than many thought, in fact has been one of the better defenders in the NBA amongst centers so far, and has definitely gone above and beyond what the narrative said he would do. On top of that, I think Marcus Smart's look great. You know, for a guy that's quote-unquote washed up, he's been playing pretty well for them, especially on defense. Up until this point, averaging 1.8 steals per game, second on their team behind Luka Doncic, another guy that does play defense quote-unquote, and not only that, but really becoming their defensive leader, one of their team leaders in general, making an impact on defense, and one of their best defenders. I think Marcus Smart's played really well, in spite of the not-so-great three-point shooting, only 25.4% overall, though he has been better from the corner at nearly 38%. So not to mention more room for improvement with him, but also has been pretty good. So between Austin Reeves, DeAndre Ayton, and Marcus Smart, those 3 alone have been great and much better depth than many claimed they had. But even for guys like Jake LaRavia, having multiple 20-point games and, although a bit inconsistent, is 24 years old after all, has been their 6th leading scorer on the team, averaging 9.9 points per game off the bench in roughly 27 minutes per game, is fluctuating but has shot fairly decent from the 3-point line. On top of that, has been pretty good on defense, averaging 1.4 steals per game, a decent tertiary playmaker for their team, averaging 2.2 assists per game, and all around has been a pretty decent 3-and-D option that definitely has a lot more room for growth. Though another quiet contributor, so damn quiet that I almost skipped over him, does happen to be Rui Hachimura. Currently averaging 15 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, by far the most efficient role player on their team and really the most efficient player on their team, shooting 57% from the field. Up until this point, only has 3 games all season where he shot below 50% in a game. That's out of 16 games so far, mind you. Not to mention 48.3% from 3, the best in their entire team, one of the very few guys on their team that's shooting above 35%, and for a true shooting percentage, Rui's at the very top of the league in regard to role players and pretty much any player for that fact too. So great production for Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves obviously, DeAndre Ayton, Jake LaRavia, Marcus Smart, even minor contributions from guys like Nick Smith. The guy dropped 25 points in a game off the bench, a guy that pretty much no one has heard of, but even he's made an impact too. Of course, even for Jackson Hayes here and there, Jared Vanderbilt here and there, despite now being out of the rotation, even for Gabe Vincent here and there, you know, they have a lot more depth than given credit for and advertised entering this season. So I think that's been something to point to, something that's been way better than advertised and better than many claimed it ever could be entering this season. So definite strong suit for their team, but that's not the only one. On top of that, I think their offense in general has been very good. Currently at the 10th rated offense, but throughout times they've been a top 5 offense this season, you know, purely from Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and now LeBron back. I think they have one of the highest ceilings on offense, if not the highest ceiling, apart from maybe OKC. You know, I think they have an elite offense, in spite of the fact that they've shot terribly from the 3-point line. Like, for real, they've been flat out terrible. Up until this point, they've made the fewest 3-point shots per game, only connecting on 11 of them per game, dead last in the entire NBA. 32.5 3-point shots attempted per game, bottom 5 in the NBA, only making 33.9% of their 3-point shots. That's bottom 8 in the NBA. All around have not been a good 3-point shooting team. Like I said, they have one guy shooting above 35%, one guy that's actually played over 5 games and has been a rotation player for them, that again being Rui Hachimura, pretty much carrying their 3-point percentage with a 48.3% mark. But apart from him, for a guy that's played and has played more than 5 games in the rotation, there's not a single guy shooting above 35%, which is pretty much league average. There's Jake LaRavia shooting nearly 35%, then Luka shooting 33.3%, LeBron shooting 33.3%, Dalton shooting below 33%, Austin shooting below 32%, Marcus again shooting 25%. Yeah, it's not been very good. Though in my opinion, that simply won't keep up over time. That trend is definitely not sustainable. I think there's no way it stays that bad. Whether you're pointing to prior shooting with their guys, again with Luka being a 35% plus 3-point shooter, Austin being a 37% plus 3-point shooter, LeBron shooting over 37% last season, even a guy like Marcus Smart being around 33%, so 8% lower than he's currently at. I don't think they'll stay the same over time. And yes, the shot quality numbers do reflect that. Up until this point, the Lakers have had the 5th most open shots in the entire NBA. And no, I'm not joking about that. They've been open, they simply have not fallen. According to NBA.com, the Lakers attempt nearly 29 open shots per game, that being classified as a defender being within 4 to 6 feet away from them when the shot goes up. And on top of that, they've simply not made many of them. Of the 29 open shots that they take, quote unquote, over 13 of them per game have been 3-point shots, and yet their open 3-point shots are only falling at a 30% clip. That's bottom 5 in the entire NBA once again, you know, go figure, actually being the 3rd worst, only falling behind the Utah Jazz and the Indiana Pacers, both of which have losing records and are well below 500. You know, over time, I simply don't think they'll keep up. They're not that bad of a 3-point shooting team. With the shot quality that Luka Doncic, LeBron, even Austin Reeves generate for their team, they're bound to go in sometime. So while I would point to their shooting as a current weak point for their team, I'd also point to it as something that has a lot more room for growth, and simply something that they have not been up to par in so far, but I simply don't think it'll last. Another thing I'd point to that they were very bad at but also are now improving in, would be their ability to get out and run in transition. You know, in their first 14 games, they were a bottom 3 fast break points per game team, bottom 4 actually, only scoring 12.5 fast break points per game, that being a pretty bad mark for them and something that they have not been for literally over half a decade now. But coincidentally, when LeBron came back 3 games ago, they shot up to the very top of the NBA, literally being number 1 in fast break points per game, jumping up to nearly 22 per game in their past 3 games. LeBron obviously being a big part of that and really the driving force behind it. Ever since he came back, they've made it a point to get out and run, whether it be with him and Austin, him and Luka even, him and Jake LaRavia, him and Rui, whoever it might be. They made it a point to get out and run and really jumpstart their offense immediately after they get the defensive rebound. So again, pointing to something that they were not good at but now are improving drastically at, I think that this is something to point to, and in my opinion, it's really a telltale sign that they do in fact have the ability to get even better. And then kind of flipping that around to their transition defense, something that they have been notoriously terrible at for literally half a decade now, they're finally a good transition defense. And no, I'm not joking about that. After being a bottom 3 transition defense dating all the way back to 2022, they're finally a top 10 transition defense. Up until this point, giving up the 7th fewest points per game off turnovers to their opponent, only 14.7 per game, then giving up the 10th fewest opponent fast break points per game, only giving up 12.3 per game. That's a drastic difference compared to last season, where they gave up nearly 17 per game, in fact over 17 per game, or over the past 5 years now, making me endlessly shout at my TV for them to get back on defense. They are finally doing it. And I definitely point to one player for it, but not only one player here alone, pointing to a guy like Marcus Smart, who I mentioned is a defensive leader for their team. I think he's really changed the mentality with this, getting back on defense, making a point to do it, not being afraid to call out guys for not doing it. I definitely point to Marcus Smart as a big part of it. On top of that, I'd point to Redick making it a bigger emphasis, their entire coaching staff pointing to it and really making them work harder on it, after not doing it for literal years now at this point. So yet another improvement for them. However, I will say their defense is far from perfect. Up until this point, they've been in the middle of the pack in the NBA, sitting at 15th place in defensive rating. In spite of their better transition defense, in spite of being a pretty decent half-court defense, they're not great. I would definitely point to this as something to where if they want to improve and become a top 10 defense, which will be where their peak is, then they might eventually have to make a trade. And that's kind of the final part I want to talk about here. Not really a part of their current team per se, no trade ever is, but I think they have an obvious trade package, or packages, that they can actually package to directly address a few of their last remaining needs, of which in my opinion are again, defense, simply two-way ability in general, guys that can impact their team positively on both defense and offense with purely 3-point shooting. I would point to a trade package of their final tradable first round draft pick, that being in 2031, their 4 tradable first round draft pick swaps, 1 tradable second round draft pick, expiring contracts like Gabe Vincent, Maxi Kleber, if you want to go really far with it, even Rui Hachimura. Though I would be fairly hesitant to include him in a trade, it would have to be an absolutely perfect one in my opinion, of which there are probably not very many. Though again, those are their expiring contracts, their draft assets, then a guy like Dalton Connect for a young asset, albeit with not a ton of trade value at this point. They have an obvious trade package or packages that they can in fact deal to, again, directly address the final remaining needs on their team, of which they have a few of them and you can point to whatever you want to. But I think with that, the ability to overcome those holes and go out to a 13-4 record, the 3-headed monster on their team with Luka, LeBron, and Austin, their better depth than given credit for, their improving defense and transition defense, their improving fast break offense, improving team all around in my opinion. I think they're trending up and are in fact a better team than many give them credit for, have more quality wins than many give them credit for, and are simply a higher ceiling team than probably many acknowledge too, though albeit not perfect. But with all of that being said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about the Lakers so far? How do you feel about what they've shown, who they played, their offense, their defense, the top of their team, the bottom of their team, everything in between all of that? How do you feel about them and their team going forward? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.